Story 1. I let my depression and borderline personality disorder ruin me as a person. I stopped going out, laughing, being fun, and being driven. I became draining, difficult, negative, and selfish, and I got comfortable. I took their love and loyalty for granted, thinking they would never reach a limit. I didn't cheat, but I was a shell of a person. I should have done more at the time. I should have pushed myself to do more, seek more help, and work on being a better partner. Story 2. Being unaware of my wife's bad day, I played one of our usual pranks on her. She cried, and I spent the rest of the night apologizing. Story 3. I was an absolute disaster. I didn't save any money, blamed my partner, didn't look after the children enough, didn't pay attention to my health or appearance, and made insufficient effort to make them feel appreciated or special. I didn't show enough affection and blamed them when they distanced themselves. I cheated repeatedly while placing the blame on them. I was the worst. This is the stuff I don't mind sharing. Story 4. I took advantage of him financially. I didn't force him to pay. I stayed because he was very generous with money. Story 5. Wow. Reddit is full of angels, and almost every single comment is about something their partner did wrong. Story 6. I cut him with a knife in 3 places. We were in a huge fight, and we were in each other's faces when, out of nowhere, he punched me in the face so hard that my nose started bleeding instantly. I felt absolute rage after he hit me and grabbed a knife, making 3 swift motions across his leg, arm, and chest. He also knew that 5 years before that, someone else had put me in the hospital, and I was subpoenaed into court to testify against my attacker, which was all traumatizing. I think he expected me to just crumble or run away because, when this happened to me 5 years prior, I was trying to escape, but he kept dragging me back in to continue hurting me. In this case, my fight-or-flight response went into full fight mode. I know it's bad, but I don't regret it. The last time I saw him, he still had the scars. Story 7. I lied to my girlfriend about my eating disorder. Knowing that she is struggling with an eating disorder as well, I don't have the heart to tell her that I relapsed and started restricting my food intake and taking diet pills again. This lasted 2 months, and I looked her in the eye and told her that I was fine. I'm not ready to share what happened, but I have already sought help and am working on my recovery again. I plan to tell her when I am ready, but this feels like the worst thing I have ever done. I feel like a terrible person for lying, but I don't want to risk her recovery. Story 8. I contacted and caught up with another man while thinking he didn't want to see me anymore. He did, and afterwards, I felt unbelievably childish and immature. I completely misread him, what he actually said, and the situation. I have regretted it ever since. Story 9. She asked, "Can you cook dinner, please?" I was watching TV, thought it was my brother, and said, "Make it yourself, dumbass." Story 10. I hid my true emotions out of fear of being ridiculed or having them used against me, driven by deep-rooted insecurity over my self-worth, which resulted in me being emotionally closed off. I also concealed everything behind alcohol and drug use. I never learned how to properly express my emotions to others. I never learned that it was okay to be emotionally vulnerable with the person you love. She deserved better than the person I was back then. Story 11. The worst thing I did in a relationship was letting resentment build up instead of addressing problems early. I kept telling myself that it wasn't a big deal every time something bothered me, until one day I exploded over something small. It wasn't fair to my partner, and it ended up damaging the trust between us. I learned that silence isn't always peaceful. It can be a slow poison. Story 12. I prioritized her over myself. This dynamic can work, but only when both are participating. I sacrificed my hobbies, social connections, financial security, and sense of self-worth because there was always some goal of hers that I gave priority to or a greater level of care I could provide for our children. I eventually became a shell of a person, merely a financial provider, a caregiver for our children, and a sounding board for her to vent to. I relied on her to provide me with any sense of value because I couldn't see inherent value in myself. She eventually decided that she no longer loved this shell of a person and concluded that our marriage was over. I couldn't blame her because I didn't love myself either. I was devastated because I loved her, And all the sacrificing and prioritizing of her needs while denying my own was proof of that love. Story 13. I was scared. I didn't have the courage to face the emotional baggage from my past. I didn't have the courage to hear my mistakes when they tried to communicate them with me. I didn't have the courage to hear them say that some things I did hurt them. I didn't have the courage to understand that they didn't have to love me just the way I am and that I should better myself for them. I didn't have the courage to look at them and understand what they felt. I didn't have the courage to start therapy before they broke up with me. I didn't have the courage to understand how my past affected me and even my physical state. My therapist said that my body was at its limit for a long time, and they didn't believe how I kept handling this all this time. I was scared. Scared of facing myself. Scared enough to keep running from my problems and my past, but not nearly scared enough of losing the person I loved the most in my whole life. Now, almost 1 month after the breakup, I'm doing all the things I should have done before, and I just blame myself for it. We may even get back together one day, but finally hearing what they felt and how I've hurt them in ways I couldn't face before, this feeling is never going away. I love them. They were the perfect partner for me, had everything I ever wanted, and now I've lost. I promised myself I would never be scared again, never be scared of myself, and I won't run anymore. Not only because of the past relationship, but for myself first. I need help, and I won't run away from it again. I miss them so much every day, and I will love them forever. Thank you. Story 14. My then girlfriend and I were having relationship problems at the time, and there was a woman at my workplace with whom I became quite friendly. We really liked each other and ended up getting close. We exchanged numbers but never called one another and shared long hugs when departing for the day. I was tempted to advance our relationship, but my conscience wouldn't allow it. Soon, this woman and I stopped interacting because she reconciled with her ex, and my girlfriend and I worked things out. Ironically, after my girlfriend and I broke up, she revealed that she had cheated on me for almost our entire relationship. Story 15. Stayed with a serial cheater. I only knew about the first time and then ignored warning signs for a few years. Don't ignore the warning signs, everyone. Story 16. The worst thing I ever did was be in a toxic relationship that I knew I shouldn't have been in. I knew she was unfaithful, but I just couldn't prove it. The night before work, my friends and I went out drinking, and one of my best friends upset me by trying to embarrass me at the bar in front of some new girls, even though he had a girlfriend whom I worked with. The next day at work, we finished early, and my friend's girlfriend asked me for a drink because there would be traffic at that time, and we could just wait it out. Long story short, I ended up hooking up with her 3 times that afternoon, and we never spoke of it again. They are still together to this day, and I distanced myself from the friendship because I didn't have the heart to tell him. I feel guilty and ashamed and also had a girlfriend at the time. Sorry if this was hard to read. I'm not good at writing in English. Story 17. I always encouraged him to switch to a new job and leave the old one, as he was miserable in it. We often had arguments due to his commitment issues. One day he got a new job and was moving to another city. He was very happy and informed me first. I was angry with him and I didn't know why. I couldn't see his happiness, even though I had urged him to change jobs. I stopped talking to him. I wanted to prove my importance to him. For 6 months, I didn't speak to him. That was when he wanted to be close to me and open up, but I pushed him away. I think jealousy took over me at that time, which separated us forever. Story 18. I made her the center of my universe. I had nothing going on outside of the relationship. No friends, no interests, no ambitions, nothing. It took a long time to start building my own world that was not connected to her. It is much better now, and she admitted that being my only focus for so long was weighing her down. The relationship definitely blossomed because of that change. Story 19. The worst thing I did was fooling myself, believing in love and trying to ignore my intuition about people. I should have never loved anyone and should have always trusted my intuition. Story 20. I was so much in love with her that I didn't recognize the signs of her unfaithfulness until she simply stopped coming home one day. Story 21. So far in the relationships I have had, the one at 14 was the worst. My boyfriend and I were really close, very supportive, and best friends. However, both of us had been having a hard month, and I watched him get more and more depressed. He made me promise not to tell his father about it, because that would make things worse. When I became worried and confused enough, I gave in, secretly obtained his father's number, and informed him about it. I know I was just trying to help, but I still felt guilty about going behind my boyfriend's back. I told him what I had done as soon as I could and cried for over an hour. He brought me roses to make me feel better, but that only made me cry more. We are still young, so maybe it doesn't mean much, but we have made it through that and more by now, and as of now, he is doing really well. Story 22. I cheated on my high school sweetheart more than 4 times. I was egotistical from around the age of 16 through my mid to late 20s. Luckily, we have reconnected and are actually great friends now. Story 23. Stay in the relationship after I was told that my boundaries were crossed. I was so desperate to be in any sort of relationship that I let my standards drop significantly and was miserable for the next 2 years. Story 24. I cheated once, but since then I've been trying to make up for it. He stayed and we're working through it. I made mistakes, but now I'm focused on redeeming myself and becoming a better person. Story 25. When I caught my ex cheating, I said some hurtful things to her. I regret saying those words, and it hurt me more to see her cry during the divorce. Story 26. I lost my virginity to the girl I loved, but she told me it wasn't enjoyable, so we didn't have sex after that. We broke up a couple of months later, and now, a year later, I am seeing someone new. I am scared that the day will come when she wants to be intimate, and I will ruin another relationship. Story 27. Forgetting about myself and my emotions, I was convinced that I was here only to give, and that it was a responsibility. Story 28. I decided to look through her purse because I felt something was wrong. I found a card from a guy she had claimed was just a friend, with his house key taped to it. She had planned to leave me in the middle of one of my workdays without any explanation. We got into a big fight. When she asked me if she should leave, I told her no because I was too scared, young, and didn't want to be alone. Story 29. I gave them a manipulative ultimatum. I took it back the same day, but doing it at all was probably very destructive to the relationship. Story 30. I finished watching Avatar, The Last Airbender, without her. I just couldn't wait, and I still feel guilty about it. Story 31. I bought a house a year into a relationship because her father convinced us that renting was a waste of money, and I agreed without understanding the implications. 2 years later, I realized that I did not want to continue the relationship as I could not see myself marrying this person. However, we still had the house, which did not sell right away. We had already broken up but had to wait for the house to be sold. Story 32. These comments are frustrating and sound like something from a teenager's online forum. The worst thing I ever did in a relationship was tell a girl I had family ties to Asian mobsters. I wasn't specific about any group, but I grew up adopted, and my adoptive family has a significant amount of business invested in our city. She ended up extremely paranoid. I never told her she was safe. I didn't have to. Her fear of getting caught by these imaginary mobsters made me realize I couldn't trust her at all, even though I had hoped it would make her feel secure in her adventures. Story 33. I used sex as an unhealthy coping mechanism for my stress and completely disregarded how I made my partner feel. I miss her. I would give up physical pleasure for the rest of my life, if only to tell her I am sorry for how I made her feel and what I put her through. Story 34. I always thought about potential instead of looking at what was right in front of me. The inaction. Story 35. Narcissistic and arrogant teenager. I cheated on her and didn't care at all. I was glad she made me realize how I was after that. I went to therapy and would never cheat on anyone ever again. It's the worst thing that can happen in a relationship. Interestingly, I got cheated on too by another girl. Karma at its finest. Story 36. I told her that while I didn't agree with her father's decision to disown her, I understood why he did. For years later, I not only agree with it, but I also can't wait to never talk to her again. This was about 6 hours into a drug-fueled emotional meltdown, one of approximately 700 over the course of 7 years. She is an all-around awful person, a terrible mother, and an even worse partner. The best thing she can do for a party is to bless it with her absence. That said, telling her what she needs to hear is utterly pointless because she won't listen. Story 37. Right before I left my husband, with whom I had been together for 17 years, I emotionally cheated on him with someone I met in a video game. This person was manipulative and nudged me toward ending my marriage, even though I was already hesitant to stay. I do not excuse my actions. What I did was wrong. I should have ended the relationship as soon as I realized what was happening, or I should have left my husband sooner. However, I do not regret my decision. My marriage was toxic, characterized by emotional, financial, and sexual abuse. I was resistant to accepting that I needed to leave him, as if I had been brainwashed. It is ironic to mention this, as I have heard he may be starting a cult. The emotional cheating lasted about 3 to 4 weeks before I finally found the courage to leave my husband. Not that it makes it any better, but he had emotionally cheated on me as well with a coworker. It may have been physical. I do not know for certain, but I am aware they did kiss. Again, I know that two wrongs do not make a right, but this is just one of many reasons why I needed to leave. Story 38. The worst thing I did while in the relationship was staying and fighting far longer than I should have. I endured more pain than anyone should, physical, emotional, and mental. All because I believed in us, in the family we had, and in the hope that love could fix it. I tried to protect myself and my child while still clinging to the idea that things could get better. I gave everything I had to save something that was already breaking me. In the end, none of it mattered, all that fighting, all that hurting. It only led to more pain. I just wanted to be loved back. That's all. Story 39. I was stuck in an endless cycle of battling my own insecurities. In my eyes, she was the perfect partner for me. We had so much in common. She was always there for me and supported me no matter what I did or how I chose to do it. I couldn't believe that I had found the one. During the 1.5 years we were together, I kept telling myself that she didn't love me as much as I loved her, secretly hated me, or was angry with me, constantly seeking reassurance. Having a partner who is that insecure is incredibly taxing on anyone. She had to endure my struggles while already dealing with her own mental health challenges. Eventually, she told me that she felt more stressed than happy whenever I was around, and we both agreed to a mutual breakup. It has been over a year since then, and I still can't accept that I messed things up as badly as I did. I believe she was the one woman who checked all the boxes for me, and I doubt I will ever find someone who connected with me as much as she did. If only I had truly believed her all the time she said she loved me, perhaps we would still be together and happy. Story 40. I was emotionally withdrawn for months without communicating. I just went through the motions while planning my exit. I should have been honest instead of wasting both of our time. Story 41. Objectified, I made her feel lesser about herself. I made horrible jokes and comments not only about her but also regarding her siblings. Arguments over her traumatic experiences contributed to a very toxic environment. I couldn't control my anger, and while I was never physically or verbally abusive, my outbursts were traumatic for both of us. I pushed her away and made her feel worse about herself. In contrast to her making me feel safe, she didn't feel safe with me at all. Endless stupid jokes treated her as lesser and traumatized the way she saw herself. I was immature, egotistical, depressed, and cruel. We weren't good for each other, and my behavior especially didn't help. Story 42. I cheated on my now wife and spoke negatively about her. This happened about 3 years before we got married, and she only found out 4 months ago. Our first wedding anniversary was not a very happy day. It was out of pure frustration. I was unhappy with how our relationship was, and I vented to people I shouldn't have. It eventually got so bad that I ended up sleeping with an old friend of mine who was going through a similar situation. I deeply regret it and know it was the wrong thing to do. My wife is an incredible woman, and I think the world of her. We are currently in a very awkward situation where she is trying to decide if she can continue with our relationship, and I am trying to redeem myself. There have been many arguments, a lot of anger, and even more sadness during this time. I miss her so much. Story 43. When I was in my early 20s, I was with a guy who was, in hindsight, an absolute piece of work. I won't go too much into it, but I will say that he was my first in many ways, and I developed a really unhealthy understanding of consent in sexual situations. He did a lot of things to me that I didn't want, but made me feel terrible if I ever stood up for myself and called him out afterward. As he was my first, and I am on the spectrum, I had a twisted understanding that sex in a relationship was owed for certain things and that arousal equaled consent. After I moved away, he cheated, and we finally broke up in a way that felt permanent, although it wasn't. My self-worth and mental health were poor, so I stayed friends with him. He started seeing a girl long distance on a different continent from mine, and treated her with the same kind of manipulation and childishness that he had shown me. He also did things that really creeped me out, like sending me videos he secretly recorded of him being intimate with her or sharing details about their private conversations that I'm sure she would have been mortified to know I knew. From the outside, it became apparent to me how wrong this was, so I tried to gently call him out for it. This girl flew to see him for his birthday, which was just before the anniversary of my leaving his country. He was down about that and stayed moody and distant with her. She was clearly frustrated that she'd spent a lot of money coming to see him, buying him gifts, and he could do nothing but complain about missing me, his ex. He ignored her to play video games and mope, just like he had done with me about anniversaries of things related to his ex or some traumatic event in his childhood, which he likely made up. Up to this point, it was reasonable to be on her side. She became frustrated and basically forced him into having sex with her. As far as I know, she groped him until he became aroused, then got on top of him and wouldn't let him push her off until he finished. He told me this, sounding utterly ashamed and feeling violated by what happened. He claimed he felt like she raped him. Of course, he had done similar things to me. I had been held down by him and told it was normal, with my being wet considered a sign that I wanted it. So I told him that accusing her of being a rapist was disgusting and that he needed to get over himself. I reminded him that she had traveled all that way for him, and that sex was the least he could offer her. I said if he was aroused, he must have wanted it. I recounted times when I had told him I didn't want it, but he forced it anyway, and if what she did was wrong, then what he did to me was wrong too. Did he think he was my rapist? Years later, I am in a much happier and healthier relationship. My current partner had to address a lot of misunderstandings regarding consent and the concept of being owed sex. He still occasionally has to remind me that I'm allowed to say no at any point or withdraw consent if I change my mind. I still struggle with it, to be completely honest, but I am extremely grateful to have a partner who cares for me in this way now. I have done other bad things, of course, but denying that my ex was violated and chastising him for accusing her has to be the worst morally. No matter what he did to me first, I don't think ignorance is an excuse for not being there for him as a friend when he shared his feelings, especially given how I had been through the same thing. I've since done a lot of self-reflection, and I'd like to think that I'm a much better person now. Men can be raped by women. A relationship isn't blank check consent. Don't stay friends with people who hurt you. Consent should be enthusiastic from all sides, and no one is owed access to your body for sexual gratification. Story 44. I continued spending time with him and engaging in dating-like activities after our breakup, to the point where we were essentially together without the official label. He wanted to be in a committed relationship again, but I did not feel the same, as I was aware of his irresponsibility with finances, alcohol, and education, which I believed would make him a poor husband. This obviously hurt him. He felt pain that he was good enough for casual dating but not good enough for a serious relationship or marriage, even though he thought I was his soulmate and future wife for a time. For context, I was relatively young, around 18 to 19 years old, and he was my first boyfriend, being 22 to 23 years old. I wish I had the strength to stick to my initial decision to break up with him, but he was genuinely my best friend, and we were very compatible. I just could not handle the stress of watching him struggle with his classes semester after semester. He ended up getting a driving under the influence charge shortly after we ended things for good. I wish him the best. Story 45. She left me, and when I came to pick up my things, there was a man in my bed. I stayed there despite still having a wonderful family, and 20 years passed without my recovery. Life went by too quickly with the kids, and I miss those moments. You can't really leave after some years because you are slow to act. I do love her the more I live with the children, but I always regret the chances I had to change. As a child sent into foster care by my mother for good reasons, being alone without a family was always my nightmare. I don't even suffer as long as I don't focus on it. Story 46. I would just say, it's okay. After not receiving a message for 24 hours while he was out with his friends, he responded, sorry, I was enjoying myself with them, doing this and that, and it took him a whole day to reply. Story 47. The worst thing I did was not respect myself enough. I later learned that she had borderline personality disorder, but at the time I was unaware. I allowed her to use her condition against me to portray me as the one who was bad and always messed up. I accepted this treatment and felt like a pushover. Story 48. I had a girlfriend who became controlling after we moved in together, and it was my first experience being close to a narcissist. After a while, I couldn't handle it anymore. She wouldn't let me leave and refused to move out. So, I focused on the end of the lease and started ignoring her most of the time. I was completely checked out. She decided to break up with me, and I took that as a sign to start talking to other girls. This was effective in getting her to leave. She tried to create a cheating narrative, but it fell flat because she invented some outrageous details that sounded like they were from a bad movie. Story 49. I ended the relationship after she traveled 4,000 kilometers to see me. We were living 4,000 kilometers apart, and after a few days of her visit, I decided to end things. To be fair, I know I made a mistake, and I still haven't forgiven my younger self for it. Story 50. I gave her too many chances to be honest with me. The lies became overwhelming, and her mood swings were excessive. Eventually, I lost my temper on the phone and confronted her directly. I had never felt this angry with someone before, and I belittled her to make my point. In a way, I regretted my actions, but I had reached my limit. Story 51. Not proud of this, but here goes. While I was married, I kept a journal. Nothing crazy, right? Except it wasn't for me. It was for my mistress. Every night after my wife fell asleep, I would write down everything my wife said, how she smelled, what she cried about, what she dreamed of, like I was cataloging her. Then I would read it aloud to my mistress while we were in bed together, sometimes mocking her, sometimes eroticizing it. My mistress loved it. She said it made her feel like we were hunting together. I even left fake love notes in my wife's purse, just to watch her spiral and then console her while acting innocent. I thrived on it. I felt powerful. She thought she was losing her mind. I let her. It wasn't about sex. It was about control. It was about owning someone's reality and warping it until they thanked you for it. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.